TV on BBC iPlayer.
Now in the Sign Zone on BBC Two, falling in love is not always sweet sailing.
The UK is fighting a tidal wave of romance fraud.
In the last year alone, almost 10,000 cases have been reported to the police.
It's a hugely harmful crime which can be devastating emotionally and financially, with the economic cost to the UK last year close to £100 million.
It doesn't matter if you're old or young, a man or a woman. It could happen to anyone.
The man you've been speaking to is not real.
I loved him so much.
And we are back to expose the lies and manipulation behind these heartless scammers.
We'll be uncovering the tactics of the criminals behind the scams.
It's set up to trap someone.
And following the teams that won't rest until the scammers are brought to justice.
And as ever, we'll have everything you need to know to make sure you and your money stay safe.
Who are you? Who are you?
Coming up, how this woman gave tens of thousands of pounds to a man who isn't all he seems.
Just don't know how he could do it to me. The lie, just...
The famous faces being used to scam innocent victims out of life-changing amounts of money.
I received a message and I actually had to read it 3 times to look and think, really? From who I thought was the butler.
And we find out what happened when this man travelled to America to meet his online romance.
I was obviously really excited, but one of trepidation. Is she going to be there? Is she not? Is she it? Yeah, is she not?
Kim, we've heard from a lady called Pat. She's been speaking to someone called Mark for quite a while now, but she has some lingering doubts. Let's have a look.
I've had a few disastrous marriages behind me, so that's why I decided to go online. Mark came through. He's no rock star, but yeah, I'd really fallen for him. He goes abroad to India, said he bought this jewellery, and he had got to Dubai, and he'd been arrested because he turned out that he didn't have the paperwork. They'd put on a big fine on him. He'd raised most of the money, but he was about 3,500, something like that, short. So he asked me if I could send the money. So I said, oh, OK, you know, thinking that would be the end of it and he'd be on his way home. But it didn't work out that way. It just got worse from there on. My money's nearly gone. And I said to him, I can't do it. I'm scared that I'll be evicted. And he said, oh, that doesn't matter. He said, we'll sort that out when I get home. But if he asked me, do I still love him? Yes, I do still love him. But if it's all a scam, I'm loving a ghost, ain't I?
That does not sound good to me. She'd explained to him, I am concerned that if I give you this money, I'll get into rent arrears and lose my home. And he was like, I don't care.
For her sake, I need to find out if she is indeed in love with a man or a ghost.
Whilst Ashley takes a closer look at the evidence Pat's provided, I'm on my way to meet her. Pat from Slough is a healthcare assistant and mum of 3. She had been divorced from her 4th husband for 13 years when she decided it was time to bite the bullet and try online dating for the first time.
I wanted to travel and go on holidays. My friends, they're not the sort that you go on holiday with. That's why I'm really looking for companionship. But it never worked out that way.
In January 2021, during lockdown, Pat decided to join a dating site for people looking for love in their 60s.
And then Mark come through and just seemed like an ordinary fella. He was 54, so he was sensible, well, I thought.
Attractive?
Not a film star, nothing like that. Just an ordinary, everyday fella.
Mark told Pat that he'd been an operations manager for Amazon for 7.5 years and was now living in Basingstoke. He also told her that he had a 17-year-old son and his marriage had broken down 7 years ago.
So,
Where did he say he was from?
he was born in Denmark.
Okay.
Apparently his dad was a famous jeweller in Denmark.
Okay.
And he moved over here when he was 19.
Their online romance was blossoming, with long chats over WhatsApp and text message. Then, 2 months after meeting online, Mark revealed some exciting business news.
His bosses, apparently, was opening a factory in India.
Okay.
So I said, when are you going? He said, oh, the flight's on Sunday. So I said, well, we haven't got a lot of time to think about it.
Right.
Go and do it.
Mark jetted off to India to start his 2-month contract. But despite being thousands of miles away, he didn't let his contact with Pat drop.
He used to send me all these things on my phone, good mornings and have a good day and everything. I thought, oh, that's impressive. And then he'd phone me about, or WhatsApp me about 8, 9 o'clock at night. And then he'd be chatting for 2, 3 hours.
Mark even left Pat a voice note that she's kept to this day.
Hope you're well. I really enjoyed the chat last night and I was looking forward to today's talk at midday, but sadly, something's coming in work that really made everything very difficult. But I'm really ready tomorrow morning on Monday, and that way we can really start a good conversation, getting to know each other more, and over the next few weeks we can talk a lot more online. So have a good Sunday. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Interesting, that voice, though.
What, the accent?
Interesting to me because it's a different sound of voice to the ones that we've heard before.
Is that because of his accent?
Yeah, just a different accent, but interesting.
It was around this time that Mark told Pat about his long-term career plans.
He was really happy. He'd bought some jewellery out there. He said it's really cheap out in India because he'd already told me that he wanted to set up his own business. He said, I want to be a jeweller like my dad. So I said, yeah, I bought you a nice ring and I'm really looking forward to coming back.
But on the day that he was due to fly home, Mark told Pat he'd run into some significant difficulties.
He was due in about 10 o'clock into Heathrow and he sent me this huge email all about how he'd got to Dubai and he'd been arrested. The paperwork that he got with the jewellery was wrong, so they were doing him on a charge of smuggling. So they fined him 28,000. He'd managed to raise most of it, except for a fall short of 3,400, something like that. And could I send him that? And then he'd be on a plane and on his way home. Oh, OK, he must know what he's on about. So I sent him the money, but he said I had to send the money via his boss's account.
The accent on the voice note Pat played Kim sounds like we could be dealing with a scammer based closer to home.
For the next few weeks, we can talk a lot more online.
And that's unusual because most of the suspected scammers we've investigated have been based abroad. So I'm coming to talk to Dan Parkinson, Inspector of Economic Crime at City of London Police, about whether this type of crime is gathering speed right here in the UK.
So we do have cases where parts of the gangs based in the UK, they're part of one organised crime group, and elements of it will be based overseas and elements will be based in the UK. Because if the money's coming here...
Because in many of the cases we deal with, I get the impression that the networks are exclusively overseas, so that's quite alarming to hear.
To get the money out of the UK, there has to be a means to launder it out, and that's where we're seeing crime groups developing this ability to launder the money in the UK. I mean, if you think of it, it's like a business, so you've got people who will now have quite specialist roles. So there will be money launderers whose job is purely just to launder the money. There'll be people working, creating profiles. There'll be people doing all sorts of elements.
You work hard to clamp down on romance fraud. As the world becomes more digital, as we see more people living their lives online, should we just assume that this is going to get more prevalent?
You set yourself some basic red lines, basic things that you won't do, you can keep yourself safe. Online dating is great. It allows loads of people to meet up and do all sorts of things. So online dating is not bad, but you just have to be careful.
Pat had been talking to Mark Anderson online for 6 months. He'd told her he'd been stopped by Dubai Customs for transporting jewellery without the correct documentation, and Pat had loaned him £3,400 to cover his fine. With the fine paid, now Mark was free to join Pat in the UK.
He was happy. He went to clear all the paperwork and they said that the paperwork wasn't right and he has to pay customs, VAT and everything on this jewellery. He said, I'll square up with you, I've got money in the bank. So I thought, OK. Yeah, I've got no reason to doubt him.
OK.
So I sent over the 10,000. Then the next thing I got was an email from this so-called solicitor. Apparently, Mark lost his temper and he hit one of the guards. So he was being held in the detention centre there, but he had to go to court now. They would release him on bail for another 20,000. By now, my money's running out fast.
Yeah.
I managed to rake up all my credit cards. I raked them all, maxed them all out. So I said to him, right, this is the last I could do. So I thought, OK, I might as well jump in, both feet. Sent him the 20,000.
Pat had now sent Mark over £30,000, but that was far from the end of it.
Then apparently he got taken into the hospital because his blood pressure went up. So there was the bill for the hospital, another 3,000.
And it was the latest request for hospital fees that really started to worry Pat. She refused to pay Mark, and it was then she contacted us for help.
What made me really think this is a scam was he wanted me to take another loan out. I said, but if I do that, eviction and losing my home. And he said, oh, don't worry about that. He said, we'll sort that out when I get back. And I thought, that's when, like, the big red flag come up.
So what would you like us to do?
Give me peace of mind. Find out if it's real for me or if it's just all one big scam. And at least then I can put a closure to it and move on.
Yeah.
You know, 50% of me believes him, 50% of me says it's a scam.
OK, well, we'll go away, we'll do some digging, we'll go and speak to some experts and see what we can find out for you. So it seems to me that Pat has had some doubts all along, but despite that, she's still been sending money. She said today that she's 50-50 still, despite the fact that she has been asking those questions. Just shows you how deep she is.
Romance scammers rely on stealing photos from unsuspecting people to help build fake profiles, fake identities, and fantasy stories in order to convince victims to part with their money. But sometimes the faces in the photos are a little more well known, as our next case shows. Retired Special Constable Anne from Yorkshire was married to her school sweetheart Graham for 34 years before he died of liver and kidney complications in 2019. They had 2 children and 6 grandchildren together and were the love of each other's lives.
People say you meet your soulmate. Maybe that was the case with me and Graham. We just connected together. He passed away at 7:30, Sunday morning, 17th of November.
After Graham died, Anne received a substantial payment from his company. It meant that Anne would be comfortable for the rest of her retirement. She then threw herself into landscape photography as a way of moving on. Part of this was by joining social media and photography groups where people showcased their own pictures.
I have a photography app called Viewbug that a lot of photographers use. When I turned my app on, it came up that there was a message. They liked my photography, wanted to know how I got the shots and stuff like that. And it just went on from there, did the conversation.
The message was from Clinton James. He told Anne that he was in his 50s and a doctor from New Jersey, currently working for the UN on a peacekeeping mission in Yemen.
He'd lost his wife, he'd lost his daughter in a motor vehicle accident. He had a son that I surmised was a boarding school, and he understood the grief that I was going through at the time. Clinton, he did ask if I would ever get married again. And yeah, I did say maybe in the future there could be a possibility.
With what seemed like a supportive friendship with Clinton developing, Anne continued to surround herself with photography to deal with the grief of losing Graham. Part of this was by joining social media and photography groups where people showcased their own pictures.
There was one that had come up on my Facebook page, a photograph of Gerard Butler, and I just put in the bottom of it, yeah, I like the photograph, didn't think anything of it. And then on the Facebook Messenger, I received a message and I actually had to read it 3 times to look and think, really? From who I thought was Gerard Butler.
Anne believed she was talking to the actor Gerard Butler, and they started swapping photography tips and secrets.
When I was talking to him, it was just like talking to anybody who was a friend. He asked a lot about what cameras I use, what lenses I use. When I said I'm recently widowed, again, show compassion.
Anne's new friendships with so-called Gerard and Clinton were helping her to come to terms with the death of her husband. But it wasn't long before Clinton encountered trouble in Yemen and requested help from his new friend.
Clinton was talking about that he needed to get back to his son. He wasn't coping with the situation that was going on in Yemen, and could I help with getting him back to his son in America? I'm a sucker for helping kids, and I thought, yeah, okay. With Clinton as well, I understood that because of the area that he was in, that you can't get access to your bank account.
Clinton's demands soon became frequent, and Anne ended up transferring money to him for living and travel costs on a fortnightly basis.
Then it went up to another 1,000 for other stuff that he needed. At one point, I think one was for £10,000.
Clinton promised her once he got back to New Jersey and was able to reactivate his account, he would pay her back.
Looking back now, I can call myself stupid. I can call myself daft. But at the time of what I was going through, and thinking that if I was in that situation and I wanted to get back to my kids, that I'd hope that someone would help me.
Then Clinton made one demand too many, and Anne came to her senses.
Clinton sent a message saying that you need to sell your house, you need to sell your car. I actually read the message quite a few times and thinking, what the hell have you done?
This was a turning point for Anne, and she cut contact with Clinton altogether. In just a few months, she had given him over £80,000. A scammer had stolen the photographs of an Australian war reporter to create the fake identity of Clinton. We have attempted to contact this man to let him know his identity is being used in this way. Meanwhile, Anne had kept in touch with the person she believed to be Gerard Butler. This person was also in need of financial assistance.
As most people who know Gerard Butler, is involved with quite a lot of children charities. The main one that I know of is Mary's Meals. He'd asked for funding to help with what they were hoping to get up and running.
Mary's Meals is a real charity that provides school food to children in poor countries. Initially, the man claiming to be Gerard asked Anne to donate relatively small amounts of £1,000 to £2,000. Steadily, over time, these amounts increased to £5,000, £10,000 and even £20,000. Anne was told it was all to pay for a new complex Gerard was helping the charity build in Africa. The project required everything from food for the families visiting to building supplies and medical equipment.
The accounts that Gerard asked me to send the funds were 5 different type accounts. When I questioned why using these people's, he said that his name couldn't be on the account because of him being a celebrity. He didn't want the press getting hold of what he was doing. The money that I was sending to Gerard, I thought was helping homeless children.
The project continued to run into financial difficulty, and Anne got more messages appearing to be from Gerard and asking her for help.
I received a message from Jared round about Christmas time. We're saying that he needed more funds. The building's not getting finished unless they get these funds. Is it possible for me to sell my house, sell my car? And again, I just thought, why would somebody of such stature wanting me to ask or asking me to sell my house and my car?
At this point, Anne realised it must be a scam. She challenged the person she thought was Gerard and heard nothing back. Devastated, she was left to count the money she'd actually handed over to so-called Gerard. In total, over £350,000.
Even now, I want to know where it's gone.
Between the two scams, Anne lost out on a huge total in excess of £430,000. And now realises how vulnerable she was at the time of the scams to have not noticed the warning signs. She wants to stop others from losing out as she did. We reached out to Gerard's people for comment, and there is of course no suggestion he was involved in the scam at all.
I was in a really, really vulnerable position that didn't understand the grief that I was going through. If somebody who is in the right frame of mind can get caught by these people, then I had no chance. I'm coping. Nothing to be ashamed of. We're all human. We all have emotions that we can't control at times, and we all need someone to talk to.
Like Anne, Pat is concerned she's being taken advantage of by a man she met online. So I'm taking a closer look at the evidence in her case. Mark told Pat he'd been detained abroad. It's a story we've heard before from other scammers. So I want to get to the truth for Pat as soon as possible to stop her handing over any more money.
Mark sent Pat a photo of himself in his car. I'm going to look into that, reverse image search it, and see what I can find. Oh no, this is not looking good. It's attached to a string of different dating profiles and websites to different names, different men across the world. You've got a Thomas, you've got a man in London, in Rio, you've got a Russian dating profile, you've got a Velka, you've got a Vietnamese dating profile with this photo.
Mark said he was being detained in Dubai and sent her an invoice for a customs tax bill. And this document worries me even more.
So looking at this invoice, it's from Dubai Customs, and the email address on the invoice ends in .com, when in actual fact, an email connected to Dubai Customs should end in .gov.ae. That's a real red flag, and we've seen in the past scammers create fake email accounts to try and give documents like this a sense of legitimacy.
On the bottom right-hand side of the invoice, there's also a stamp that looks out of place.
I've looked up some customs-approved stamps online, and there's one that you can buy as a bit of a template. That is the same stamp as the one on the invoice. In other words, it seems as if someone has bought this template and cropped it on this invoice to create a sense of legitimacy.
And though Mark's employment at Amazon sounds plausible, the photos of him would seem to suggest a very different line of work.
Despite Mark telling Pat that he works at Amazon, he sent her a couple of photos where he's standing in front of a boat. I just want to look into it and see what comes up.
There's a clue on one of the photos that could help.
In one of the photos where he's standing outside a boat, there is a shipping container with a bit of text on it. I want to see if that can lead me to anything. Okay, so I'm Googling that text, and it has led me to an online PDF document. Looking at this document, I can see that there is information about the company that owns that shipping container. Hopefully, if I look into that company, it can lead me to the man potentially behind the photos.
A little more reading on this company leads me to this man, who appears to do contract work for them. His name is Tim, and he bears a striking resemblance to the man Pat knew as Mark.
It seems as if he's some sort of freelance skipper, and you can see a lot of photos that confirm that he's the same man in the photos sent to Pat. I can also see children. I can see a lady that could be his partner. This Facebook profile has open Facebook settings, so clearly a scammer would be able to take his photos and take his content and create a fake profile, potentially a profile that has been duping Pat.
The evidence Ash is unearthing makes it look increasingly likely Mark really is a scammer. And yet, I get the sense from having met Pat that she really doesn't want to believe it. So, how is it that people can spend so long in a relationship with someone and miss the warning signs that they're not who they say they are? To find out more, I've come to meet psychotherapist Lahani Noor.
So a number of the people that we're talking to describe a sense of almost feeling trapped.
Yeah.
They're trapped in the scam, but they don't feel like they're able to leave. What is that?
When you're held hostage, you start to identify with the captor. It's a psychological survival system. So when we're in a difficult situation, we have to survive that situation, and our brain will do all sorts of things. So the person who's holding us, we start to prioritise them and understand, sympathise with their need and with their objective, and then we start to work with them. And if the person who's holding us develops some feelings or shows some warmth and empathy towards us, that makes that process much more powerful. So we're much more likely to fully engage in it. And then we start to feel trapped because we're invested in the desire and the needs of the captor, the scammer, for example, and we can't leave. Although another part of our brain will be saying, what the hell are you doing in here? Get out of here. So we start to form an internal conflict. Of course, another part of your brain will have an awareness that what's happening isn't real, it isn't really what you want, and you will want to leave.
Our brain gives us that, doesn't it, when we're in a relationship or when we're in love.
So cognitively, in the here and now, they know that the relationship is rubbish and they need to leave it. It's awful, it's totally wrong. But the part of their brain or the part of their system that's addicted desperately convinces them that what they really need is that relationship so they can get the dopamine hit, so they go back and get another hit.
So do you think then that links in with why people send money? You know, money after money, it's all kind of throwing kind of good money after bad because, you know, the victim still wants to believe that the scammer's real.
I think the victim needs, on some level, to believe that the scammer's real because their identity starts to take shape around this so-called relationship. And the more they tell people in their community about this scammer or relationship, the more invested they become, so the more they need it to be real. It becomes a vicious circle.
Go on then.
57-year-old former business owner and budding author Stephen has had a tough few years. He hit hard times after a relationship broke down in 2016. Soon after that, his mum died.
In order to help cope with the grief of losing my mum, I thought it would be a good idea to start promoting myself on social media. I hope you're all well, and I hope to have the book finished and produced and published by next year. Thank you.
A little while later, Stephen decided it was time to find companionship. And in 2019, he met someone called Jennifer Hudson via Facebook.
Jennifer was in her 30s, from Oklahoma City. We started off a relationship that developed and developed as time went by. We would text each day. There was a lot of love messages, emojis, gifts.
Stephen was smitten by Jennifer from the off. And a few months after their first contact, they started to discuss meeting up.
We talked longer term about me going to visit her in America for a few weeks and then her to fly to the UK, and then we get married.
As the couple started to make plans to meet up, Jennifer started to ask Stephen for small amounts of money. Believing they were more like gifts than financial assistance, Stephen was happy to help.
So Jennifer would ask me for iTunes cards. So I asked her, why iTunes cards? And she said that she takes them to a guy up the road who is really into the music, and he buys them off me. Because it was in small increments of £20 or £30, sometimes £50, I would send. And not every week, it would be monthly or every couple of months. But it did add up.
Over a period of 2 years, Stephen sent Jennifer over £1,000 worth of iTunes cards.
I decided I have to know if this person is real. I'd received 84 pictures of her, so I booked the flight. We planned that she would meet me at the airport at Dallas, and then we would drive to her house in Oklahoma City and stay there for a few days with her mum, and then we'd go away camping for a couple of weeks, maybe stay and get to know each other.
As he landed in Dallas airport and after months of messaging and Skype calls, Stephen was thrilled that at last he and Jennifer were going to be united.
I was obviously really excited, but one of trepidation. Is she going to be there? Is she not? Is she it? Yeah, is she not? And eventually, when I got through, she was nowhere to be seen. I felt devastated.
But Stephen hadn't left the airport before Jennifer was back in touch.
Jennifer texts me saying, "Where were you?" And I said, "Hang on a sec, where were you?" She said she was adamant that she was at the airport waiting for me. And I thought, well, she couldn't have been, because I would have seen her. I said, "Shall I come to OK City then, and you meet me and pick me up?" She said, "Yeah." When I got to OK City, after the first 6 hours, I started to get worried that Jennifer was not turning up. I was starting to realise that Jennifer is a scammer.
Stephen spent 2 days, including his birthday, waiting for Jennifer in the Greyhound bus station in Oklahoma City before returning to the UK. We have reached out to the woman whose photographs were stolen to create the fake identity of Jennifer and let her know her photos are being used in this way. Stephen is now a lot more cautious online.
In terms of meeting someone on the internet, I then realised it's probably true what everybody seems to say, that if it does seem too good to believe, then it probably is. You meet someone in real life, at a bar, at a bus stop, at work, that's where you meet someone.
Healthcare assistant Pat was looking for someone to share her passion for travel when she met Mark online. All was going well, with declarations of love and the two making plans for their future together. Until Mark was arrested in Dubai for not paying the customs charge on a large haul of jewellery. It began a series of events, which has so far cost Pat over £40,000.
Pat's told us she's still on the fence as to whether Mark is telling the truth or not. But so far, our investigations have thrown some serious doubt on his story.
This invoice, the invoice date, is the same as the payment date, and there are a litany of errors on this document.
It's time for Pat to hear the truth and put this whole episode behind her.
Where are you on this now, Pat? Do you still believe he is who he
I'm still
said he is?
50-50. I still have no idea.
Do you love this person?
Yes. But do I love him or do I love a ghost? Because at the moment, it's just a ghost.
With Pat still unsure as to whether Mark is a real person, we need to tread carefully.
We begin our investigations into Mark's background, starting with the address he'd given to Pat.
We looked at the address Mark gave you for his home in Basingstoke. He told you he rented it and that the home was owned by a landlord. We checked the title deed. We found the house is actually owned by a local housing trust.
That's a shop.
He would have known that if he had lived there.
OK.
Make of that what you will, Pat.
First big lie, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it wasn't just his address that worried us. There was also his work history.
Pat, we couldn't find any evidence of anyone matching his details in Basingstoke who works as an operations manager at Amazon.
OK.
Are you OK?
Well, it can't get any worse. Go on.
What I should say is that it doesn't mean he is a scammer explicitly, but we can say very plainly that at the least he's not being honest.
Next, we looked at the legal correspondence between Mark and his lawyer. We found numerous errors and warning signs.
The lawyer is using a mail.com email address.
Yeah.
It's a free email service. If they were communicating with you in a professional capacity, Pat, they should have a professional email address, not a free mail address. So on this point, the legal secretary, Elizabeth O, has an address in Garoud, Dubai, but they have spelt Garoud wrong. It should have a H in it.
All right.
It's just unprofessional.
Because I wouldn't even known that.
It'd also say, Pat, we also couldn't find any evidence of this address in Dubai. So you bring all of this information together, the email.
It's all a big scam all along.
It paints a picture of people posing as professional when they clearly don't have any professional acumen whatsoever.
The documents Pat was sent along with the lawyer's emails, supposedly to explain Mark's incarceration, also don't add up.
What do you remember of this document?
This is the one after he went to court for his bail.
Yeah. Now, we found an identical template for the bond document on a US court's website. It's easily accessible for anyone to print off.
My lord.
How are you feeling now?
Honestly,
Yeah.
stick up to that here.
Yeah. I knew you would, Pat.
I just don't know how he could do it to me.
I know.
The lie, just... I'm sorry.
Oh, Pat, don't say sorry. Don't apologise.
No, why don't you just take the money and run? Why does he have to keep going for
It's cruel.
all this long time, even afterwards?
I know.
Yeah.
You know.
So don't these people have a conscience, or...?
Unfortunately, it doesn't look like it.
We see this time and time again, I'm afraid, Pat, and these scammers are devious, they're cunning.
Pat sent Mark £6,000 to pay the customs charge to get his jewellery out of the country. But the invoice she got back in return appears to have been another fabrication.
Now, you can see on the top left-hand side that it gives a phone number for Dubai Customs. We attempted to call it, Pat, and it doesn't work. The invoice says you have 10 days to pay it, but the invoice date and the due date are identical. Makes no sense.
It's not painting a good picture, is it?
I'm just gobsmacked.
Most people wouldn't think about doing this kind of thing, you know?
No. Just that every time I sort of got suspicious with a red flag, I tried to check it all out myself. But these things I wouldn't even dream of looking at them, to be honest with you.
No. But you were asking questions, Pat.
As I said, there was always something there, but he always gave me an excuse or a reason. But then you thought about it, thought, oh, OK, that makes a bit of sense, till the next red flag, you know? And then it was just when it all sort of came out, and then you sort of think, I've got to put all these red flags together. And I've got a circus tent. I've got that many red flags.
And when it came to the photos Pat was sent, we found they were linked with multiple profiles online.
Here you have different dating profiles with the photos of the man you think is Mark. These photos are in circulation and used by scammers.
Oh, my God.
It's highly likely that you're not the only one who's been duped by these photos. Many people feel like they're falling for the man in these photos, just as you did.
Knocked the wind out of you, that, hasn't it?
I just feel so gutted, so stupid.
You have to know that everybody that we meet says the same thing, that they feel stupid. It is no bearing on your intelligence whatsoever. You're only knowing these things now because we've been to an expert and they've helped us get to the bottom of this. You know.
This is highly sophisticated stuff. You can't be blamed for falling for someone because you were vulnerable and looking for love.
With the scam now put to bed, it's time to reveal to Pat who the real man is in the photos.
His name is Tim Hall, and scammers have stolen his photos. That's the real man. And he has no involvement in the scam that's taken place. He is as much a victim as you are.
Are you okay? Oh, Pat.
We were able to get in touch with Tim, and he kindly agreed to speak to Pat.
Hello.
Hi.
Oh, this is so weird.
Yeah, I don't know what to say.
I know, I'm a bit like that, a bit stuck too. I'm glad I've got to the bottom of it. And at least I must have good taste in men, because you seem quite nice.
Do I do?
Yes.
Oh, bless your heart.
Are all the pictures of you?
Yes, both of them are. One of them in a T-shirt is in Liverpool, and the one where I'm holding the fish is in North Wales, a place called Boston.
OK, well, you take care. It's nice meeting the right person.
Oh, bless you.
There's one thing left for Pat to do. Block the scammer's number so they can never contact her again.
There you go.
Yes, Pat. Woo!
I would have deleted it all.
You go.
But no, but I want to thank you both. Because without you, I couldn't have done none of this. And I'd have been none the wiser.
Well, you know, I just think you're a lovely lady, and I wish we could have delivered you some better news, but at least we've given you that closure.
Give me that closure, which is what I need. And now I can move on and start smiling again, I suppose.
I always think it's a bonus when we can get the person behind the photos to speak to the person, to give them the closure they need.
Yeah, she said, didn't she, it was really weird for her to be chatting to the person that she thought was Mark.
To actually speak to the person live, that was just amazing. I've got the closure that I needed, I've got the proof that I needed, and I've seen for myself. And he can't hurt me no more, he can't get at me no more, and I know I don't have to put up with his lies anymore, because I know the truth. So that lets me move on.
Join us again.
You've stolen money from an innocent man.
I did it.
On the hunt for scammers closer to home.
But the main thing is just getting them secure and getting them out to custody.
Police!